Fender guitars have shaped rock history, but what if it was never meant to stay the same? I wanted to take a shot at modernizing the Fender Jaguar. I'm sure the guitar purists out there think it should be left untouched, and I think they may be wrong. Every rule about building a Fender Jaguar, I decided to break. So now, there's a Jaguar out there that Fender doesn't want you to see, and you're about to find out why. This isn't your dad's guitar. This is what happens when you absolutely smash the norm by taking an old idea and build it up from nothing into something crazy. Let's get started. First rule to break is to make the guitar out of one solid chunk of gorgeous Bastogne walnut. This thing was super warped and needed to be flattened before I could do anything else. While I was doing this, I was thinking about who would be the perfect fit to own this thing when it was finished. I was doom scrolling one day, and I came across this band, People Are Ugly.
But now I think it's better that you're off my mind.
I started really digging their music and loved how they broke the norm with their modified pop-punk approach. They're different. This guitar was bound to be different, so it seemed to be a match made in heaven. I'm not ashamed to listen to pop-punk. I listen to just about everything, and I'm not just saying that. Growing up, it was Blink-182 and NSYNC. Then on to Mudvayne, Slipknot, Lamb of God, CKY, Between the Buried and Me, Emarosa, and All Shall Perish. Then I expanded into country like Coulter Wall and Tyler Childers, or Childers, or however you say it. I've been known to even bump a Katy Perry song every now and then.
Baby, you're a firework.
Anyways, Jaguar guitars are not known to be semi-hollow, so I had to go and do that too. I have a soft spot for semi-hollows. They just feel classy to me. Although the main reason I'm doing this is to cut back on the weight. This big-ass block of wood was extremely heavy in guitar terms, and going with the semi-hollow approach was a way to mitigate that weight. Thanks to ultra clear epoxy, this build is really about to get interesting. I know I said the guitar body was going to be one solid chunk of walnut, but I also decided to do something crazy. I wanted to inlay an epoxy top. My hope was to leave a small reveal of walnut around the edges when looking at it directly. This will make more sense in a bit.
Right there.
Before I started recording this, I messed around with so many different color variations and styles and ended up landing on just plain white. People Are Ugly's guitarist, Julian Del Grosso, I think that's how you say it, wanted to incorporate a bright green into it as well. I had a hard time thinking about how green could look good with the walnut, so that's where the white came into play. I figured I could somehow outline all of the functioning parts of the guitar in green, allowing a deep contrast from the white without being too overbearing. Side note, I couldn't help but get over the fact that this looked exactly like milk. Anyone else have a sudden urge to dump a cookie into it? A few days later, and this milk brick was ready for work. The more I build guitars, the less I believe in the tone wood myth. I've seen so many guitars made out of crazy materials and they sound absolutely fantastic. I've made plenty of guitars myself that break the standard tone wood guidelines, and sure enough, they sounded just fine. I'm beginning to wonder if it was just a fantastic marketing ploy to get people to spend obscene amounts of money on something that wasn't that original. Maybe I should develop a tone resin, a hardening plastic designed to increase the tone of your guitar. Great idea, right? Well, it was actually already done with nitrocellulose finish. Some purists believe your guitar sounds like shit if you don't use it. So if anyone asks, just tell them your guitar is finished with nitro and you'll automatically sound like Carlos Santana to them. Speaking of tone, this is where the green starts to come into play. It's also why I did a lot of the beginning portion of this build on a CNC, rather than by hand per usual. I felt outlining all the parts would give it some pop or wow factor, and the band could still have something that matches their green jumpsuits. I got this idea from a guitar maker that goes by Shock the Fox. Instead of letting the walnut show through the F-hole on the top, Filling the chamber with a thin layer of green epoxy gives it another layer to look at. See? Pretty green vomit. At this point, I was really just kind of winging it and hoping the finished product would look like it was in my head. The most planning I do for a build is selecting grain and now the occasional CNC file. Thinking hinders my process. I like to keep builds as brainless as possible, otherwise it just feels like work. That being said, my unorthodox brain rot approach sometimes causes issues for me. Little did I know, I was about to hit my first issue in this build due to lack of planning. Before we get to that, if you've ever thought about making a guitar and don't have a CNC, I have full template kits available on my website that streamline the process. They're the exact same templates I use to make a variety of my own guitars. I'm also pretty open to helping you through the process, so reach out to me on my Instagram or through my website and let's get you building. Nothing really feels better than playing an instrument you made yourself. So I wanted to show you a mess up. What I should have done is cut the inlay out first and then come in after gluing it in and do all the green, all the pickups and everything, because then it would be congruent and work with the main cut. I went back and forth here and I messed up somewhere, which caused these, I did a test cut to make sure I was lined up, and I am not. You can see these holes right here. See if I could zoom in a little bit. This hole right here was my test cut, and this hole right here was my initial. This is where the screw holes are supposed to be. I only did these just a little bit because you could kind of see. Let me zoom out. I have to surface around this edge to get everything nice and flush. And then I'm gonna have to make a template to do this all by hand. Luckily, I was able to batch out a set of templates for this with the same SVG files I have from the CNC. If you are a CNC or laser user, I've been releasing my personal SVG files for all my guitar designs. They're to scale, just drag and drop to use in any software you have. I'll leave a link in the description. We haven't even gotten to the neck yet, and I'm stoked with how this is looking. Curious on your thoughts when it comes to the white inlaid top. Everything about this so far is breaking the traditional standards of a Fender Jaguar, and guitars in general. The semi-hollow body with the extra large F-hole, the green outlines, and a solid walnut body, I was starting to love every bit of it. If you hate it, let me know too. I mean, I don't really care if you do, but still drop a comment for the algorithm. It's wild to think, I'm in the middle of making a guitar shape I've never even played before. I've always stuck with PRS, Stratocasters, my own designs, and other offsets. There are so many to choose from, but it still feels so limited. I'm trying to come up with more ideas to break the norm. So I'm curious on what any of you would prefer for a dream guitar. Like, if there was one guitar you wish you had, what would it be? Scale length, bridge type, natural wood or paint? I'm genuinely curious. Anyways, here are two ways to tackle a comfort carve on the back. You could just hack away at it with a set of rasps from the jump like this. It's definitely a workout, but I injured my hip pretty bad at work recently, so I didn't want to keep approaching it this way. The other way is to mark your lines as seen here, and use a handsaw to cut multiple kerfs from line to line. After they're cut, just hack away at it with a chisel. This keeps everything within the guidelines you marked on the guitar and is easily cleaned up with a light rasp work and sandpaper later on. Another thing Fender is known for is the topside electronics access. Most of their guitars have pickguards that have all the knobs, pickups, and switches attached to it. I wanted the top to be a statement piece, so having backside electronics cavity was the way to go. I think by the end of this, the only thing really Fender about the guitar will be the body shape. Another thing to really piss off the traditionalists is the fact I'm using active EMG P90 style pickups, so the battery box needed to be routed out as well. The lid is made from Katalox, which has a really nice plum color to it. It's a really hard wood and the color should complement the green and walnut nicely. It's so nice, in fact, I decided to make the entire neck out of it. My favorite part about any woodworking project is finally getting to reveal the grain from underneath. I thinned out some more ultra clear epoxy to seal the wood before I added some oil finish later on. Check it out. Time to finally get started on this neck. Most Jaguars have a 24-inch scale length, but I've seen Julian playing a Stratocaster most often, and those have a 25.5-inch scale length. So, to make it more custom to him, I decided to go with that 25.5-inch approach. I've become more attracted to a guitar neck that's all the same color or species of wood. I used to make laminated necks all the time, but there's something about the simplicity of a neck that looks like one solid piece. To accomplish this, I resawed a fretboard from the same piece I wanted to make the neck with. This allows me to work on a fretboard by itself, so when I glue it back on, it'll match up nicely. One thing Julian requested was to have the band name across the entire fretboard. I used some more white epoxy to fill this, and the contrast was absolutely crazy. As I've mentioned before, this is not a Fender guitar, so it only felt right doing a little something different to the headstock as well. Officially, this is the Scarlett Jag, and will likely be the only one ever made. So that name eventually made its way onto the Scarlett Guitar's 6 inline style headstock for this, after I recessed the surface a little bit. You won't see the finished piece right away, but I think it fits. Watching a CNC can be boring, so let's skip ahead to the glue up. The most stressful yet anticlimactic part of woodworking there is. Once I'm done with this gallon of Titebond original glue that I have, I'm moving to something with a little more working time. I always take so much longer than expected, and this just doesn't give me the time I need to keep everything aligned without freaking out. Which is why I use these 1/16-inch steel dowels to keep everything in place. I know woodworkers know what I'm talking about, but if you're not a woodworker, let me know in the comments. Are you here because you like guitars? Or are you here because you're plotting against me for destroying an iconic Fender design? This is where I always get the feeling that I'm close to being done, but then I realize I still have an epic amount of sanding and fretwork to do. Not to mention all the drilling for the hardware and setup. I've been known to spend hundreds of hours on just one guitar, and somehow you're seeing the process in less than 30 minutes. It really is rewarding, but now that I have a brand newborn son, I need to find a way to streamline efficiency if I want to keep busting these out. I've been asked over and over to make a video solely based on making a guitar with basic tools. And honestly, I'm not sure if I can. Can it be done? Yes. But I can't attest to the quality of it. And what would one even consider basic tools? When you get into things like shaping the headstock transition, fretwork, inlays, and even electronics, specialized tools make all the difference in a finished product. I'd say a regular garage woodshop can get 90% of a guitar done with a router, table saw, and some milling equipment. So that being said, let me know in the comments if that type of video would be interesting to you. I'll do my best to make a guitar with the most basic of tools and hopefully inspire more people to make their own. But I will say, you definitely should have a drill press. Definitely. Even a cheap one is better than not having one for this. This guitar is going to be a true bolt-on, with inserts and hex-driven bolts rather than screws. I like this method because it's cleaner and only requires a couple extra steps. I feel like driving screws into something you've worked so hard on just seems lazy. So I guess that's another thing this guitar has that Fender wouldn't dare do. Then again, this guitar is definitely not a Fender. I'm using the EZ-Lok inserts here, and it's the last time I'll try anything other than their stainless steel. These brass ones stripped out at the end, even with all that paste wax on the threads. Luckily, the drum sander was able to make them flush so I could properly install for the next step. I like to use a washer and a pencil to trace out a guideline for shaping later on. I don't always follow this exact shape, but it shows me where to stop. If you've seen any of my previous videos, then you know all about this huge table edge bit. I use it to do most of my initial shaping so I can do the transition portions by hand. To me, it's a trick to a perfectly shaped neck that only requires a little bit of sanding afterwards. I always do these transitions a little bit different each time, so I'm going to just let this play through and you can see how it shapes up a bit. After it was all shaped up, it was time to reveal that Katalox plum color with the resin grain filler. Just look at it pop. Alright, stainless steel frets aren't my normal choice. I normally do gold for all my brand work, but I felt this guitar needed that nickel or chrome look. It was bound to be put through the ringer, so the frets needed to have some extra durability. They weren't as hard to work as everyone else made them seem though, but I'll admit, I didn't do the best job polishing them later. I was a little burnt out at this point and I just wanted to play it. I'm setting this up to be used with 1046 gauge strings, mostly because that's the only size set of nut files I have right now. Nonetheless, it's also my favorite set of string sizes. Slotting the nut to the right depth is crucial for setup. Not only does it need to be the right depth, but it needs to follow the radius of the fretboard as well. I didn't show it in this video, but I added a 12-inch radius to the fretboard versus the ridiculous 9.5-inch standard radius that Fender often uses. 12 is perfect. Anything smaller and you're playing a circle. Finally, the home stretch. Nothing feels better than adding the hardware and pickups. If done right, I'd be playing this traditionalist abomination sooner than I thought. If you want to follow this guitar's journey, make sure to check out People Are Ugly. And please, if you like what you watch, consider subscribing. It really helps out the channel. Finally, if you want a chance to win some custom guitars in the future, consider becoming a member. Members get 100 entries into every one of our guitar giveaways and will be the first to access our first launch of serialized guitars. One last thing to piss off the purists. I'm not going to play some crunchy blues or old school rock on this. I wanted to pilot it with some lazy metalcore riffs followed by some clean tone nonsense. Enjoy.